Right. Okay, welcome to another week and another conversation about what's happening in the country. And I think it's pretty obvious what we're going to talk about today. I think the biggest thing in Kenya this last week has been the African Climate Summit 23, ACS 23. I'm sure everybody saw that hashtag going all over the place. That is what it meant. African Climate Summit. It was hosted by President William Ruto. It had 20 plus heads of state, close to a similar number of retired and former heads of state and government. It had heads of multinationals. It had close to 100 VVIPs and close to, I think, 25,000 delegates from different parts of the world, with a big chunk coming from the African continent. And I want to talk about ACS 23 from two dimensions. First, let's talk about the substance, because we're going to talk about the substance and the politics. Let's talk about the substance. For a lot of people, I'm not sure we understood what was happening in Nairobi. Where was Nairobi shut down? Main streets were locked down. People had to go with security clearance. Of course, that was important because of the kind of VVIPs we had in town. But what was happening in Nairobi at KICC for 3 days? For anybody who has done anything around environment, I did philosophy of the environment, and there's something called the tragedy of the commons. Commons is anything that you all share that is available to everybody to use. And then based on how everybody uses, it affects that which is common to us. And there's always a story given about people who had a certain pasture of land, and various farmers had cows. And initially, every farmer had one cow, and there were like 10 farmers. So they had 10 cows that were coming to graze on this particular pasture. And so what would happen is that the pasture was able to regenerate itself very consistently until one farmer decided he's going to keep another extra 4 cows. So he had 5. And because there was nobody who could tell him not to, he would graze his 5 cows the same way everybody else is grazing 1. Another farmer decided he's going to keep 10. And before you knew it, they had actually exhausted this particular pasture. And so the issue is, how do you ensure the pasture doesn't get exhausted while you do not have control about determining how many cows every farmer can actually have? That is the problem that the world has with the issue about environment. We all have one common atmosphere, one common environment, the benefits that come from the global economy, for lack of another word. And this is not the global economy in terms of cash. We're talking about the air we breathe, the water we have, the energy we have from natural resources is finite, right? And we are all these farmers. So Kenya is a farmer, America is a farmer, China is a farmer, Russia is a farmer. But some countries use a lot more of that common than others. But we all suffer the consequences of this deterioration together. So Africa has come up and said, actually, we as Africa suffer more when we have floods, when we have drought, because drought and floods is part of the deterioration of the environment around us, based on industrialization of the first world. So the first world is industrializing, building the economy. As they industrialize, they do carbon emissions and everything, and they deteriorate the environment. The people who are suffering are us, and because our resource is not enough for us to be able to create cushions, we have droughts, populations are lacking food, we have floods, and this conversation was now being held in Nairobi to ask us as a continent and as part of the world, what are we going to do to ensure that we protect our environment? That was the substance of what was happening in Nairobi under ACS 23. A major number that came out is 3.9 trillion Kenya shillings that was negotiated, that is going to be invested into African countries to help them mitigate the effects of the deterioration of the environment. Of course, I'm sure a lot of people have heard about carbon credits. People don't know what carbon credits mean. Carbon credits is being given a credit because of doing something that takes care of the environment. So if you plant trees, for example, you get carbon credits. And then what is happening is that the first world is buying carbon credits from the developing country that allows you to pollute because you've bought carbon credits. And there's an argument there by the non-government organizations involved in environment whether you should actually be allowed to have carbon credits, because it's like being given a license to misbehave. I have a carbon credit, so I can do whatever emissions I want to do. Nairobi made a declaration that they're going to do something about this. There's supposed to be a fund that's supposed to take care of damages and losses that's supposed to be put, especially by the countries that are most guilty of deteriorating the environment. And they're supposed to put money there to help the world generally mitigate about this loss. The president, William Ruto, brought this home, and he did an amazing job. I think the fact that it came and went, I'm sure we had a bit of noise about people saying, oh, the registration and all. I do not think that was an issue. For a brand new government that is less than a year old, to be able to host an event of this magnitude and do it the way they did it, come up with the declarations they did, be able to raise the issues. It was a very candid conversations by all the presidents and heads of government who were there. The challenges to the first world were blunt. There was no whitewashing stuff. First world, and I know the special envoy on the environment from the US, Kerry, former state secretary of state, I think for Obama, was in town, and people were saying he was in town. He wanted to know what these Africans are doing, because if Africa was to come together and challenge the first world to stop some of the activities that they do that deteriorate the environment and cause us the amount of harm that we are suffering, the first world would have a problem. And so seeing Africa come together for the first time to generate a united voice that says, look, this is our common. We must avoid falling into the tragedy of the commons. And it was proud. It was a proud moment for us as Kenya, in Nairobi, under a president who has served for less than a year, to be hosting that event. That was the substance of ACS 23. Let's talk about the politics of ACS 23. First, let's remember that President William Ruto is actually literally the newest kid on the block as far as the President's Club in Africa is concerned. I do not know whether there was any president who was in that particular summit who has served for a lesser period than he has as president, right? Second, my own personal opinion. I keep feeling as if, because President Ruto is a chairman, currently is the chairman of the African Working Group on the Environment, and also the chairman of the National Climate Change Council in the African Union. And sometimes when you listen to groups like those, they sound very big, but more often than not, they tend to be most probably those things that new guys are given by the older people. You kuwa chairman wa hii, kuwa chairman ya hii, as other guys take care of security and other issues. So sometimes I get the impression that when he was taking up this, the African Union and the rest of the presidents hadn't seen what you could do with something like this. So President Ruto picks up this issue of climate change and literally runs with it. And he went all out. Of course, people were making jokes about the small yellow car, but he got the message home. He's not going to drive that yellow car throughout. I mean, he's back to driving the big fuel guzzlers. But the point got home. In fact, from a security perspective, was thinking, wow, presidents are not supposed to drive. He drove, I think, on 2 days, from State House to KICC and back. He got the message home that, hey, we can actually do this. So the politics of that event, as far as I'm concerned, both locally and continentally and nationally, internationally for that matter, President Ruto has proven that he has capacity to do something of this magnitude. It was huge. Along the presidents who had come in, whether it was Kagame from Rwanda, Suluhu from TZ, we had Malawi, we had Botswana, we had various countries that were represented. I don't know how many countries would have been able to pull out this kind of event the way we did. He had the whole world literally here watching us, talking about the climate and the environment, and that was big. So that was a big coup for him politically, especially as a new president. He has put himself firmly on the map of presidents to watch, and he has 9 years to go, God willing, for him to keep creating this particular brand of his. The second thing is how comfortable he was with himself and this particular event. I think part of it is because he's come from that particular field in terms of his study, environment and botany, but then also just how comfortable he was hosting and taking care of this particular event. Somebody made fun that had it been some of our former presidents, they would have opened the event and then come back to close it. He was there literally every single day. He was participating in the forums, in the sectoral discussions. He was hosting dinners. He was all out. You saw the focus You saw the preparations he brought to this conversation. You saw the amount of intensity that the entire government took this event with. You know, and one of the other winners I say from this particular event is CS Soipan. Again, when ministries are graded and ranked, the environment ministry tends not to be ranked as high as some other ministries. But Soipan had her moment to shine, 15 minutes of fame internationally, not just here. Hosting presidents, guiding presidents, being the person, the MC of the moment in terms of actually this event. And you can tell that President Ruto has aligned a lot of his work to what is going to be happening around the environment. We had PS Omolo, PS for Interior, talking about what they're going to be expecting the non-government organizations that work within this sector to do, to align themselves to the kind of decisions that were made in ACS 23. So we have the substance of what that event did. We have the politics. And I think for me, my takeaway politics is President Ruto announced to the world that he's here. Second, he showed the world what he is capable of, and it was impressive. Third, he was comfortable. He was not, I mean, I'm sure he was really straining himself. He did not look like he was straining himself. He looked like he was having a ball, doing a very intense schedule for 3 days where he was there every single day with his government. We saw the deputy president receiving people, receiving guests, including the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. That was a moment, I think, for the whole world. When the visitors were at home, we were all playing nice. When the visitors were around, we were all playing nice. And we will see what happens in coming days. So for me, that's what my very brief analysis of the substance and the politics of ACS were. We understand that we have an environmental problem that we need to deal with as a world. Every citizen has a responsibility to make your world a better place in terms of the environment in which you live. And then, of course, the politics. President Ruto did not let us down. He actually made us proud. Whether you like him or not, he made us proud this week in how he hosted this particular event. As a wrap up, I want to talk about something that happened in Nyeri this weekend. UDA opened a regional office in Nyeri Town constituency. I mean, I was laughing, and I had a conversation with one of the national officials of the party. And I said, look, you guys are sending, there's a message you have sent. And I think we are hearing it. If UDA is going to open a regional office, I mean, I'm assuming this is going to cover this particular region. In Nyeri Town constituency, there's a message we are being sent. And I think it is important for us to align to what that message is. And in coming days, we will do our best to align to that message. So asante sana. As always, we are shooting this from Rware Central Hotel. We keep selling China mandazi. We have good conferences. We have good accommodation. We have terrific soup, especially for this season. So please pay us a visit when you can. God bless you. God bless Kenya.